G'day and welcome to the box seat. I'm Pete Anthonus. It's good to be here to preview 7 races from Belmont Park this Wednesday. If we take a quick look at the forecast, it's partly cloudy and 23 degrees. The rail is out in the 12-metre position and I'm expecting a good 4-track. Race 1 at Belmont jumps at 1:15. It's the TABtouch Bet Your Bet plate over 1,000 metres, and our horse and focus will have a look at the most recent start of Brave Contender.
Saint about to open up, 350 metres left to go, led by a length and a half to Too Busy, One Interstate. A gap Brave Contender coming to the 200 though. War Saint shaken up, still hands and heels, well clear. Looks as though he's got their measure now. He's 2.5 to 3 in front from Busy One battling away. Brave Contender Interstate, but it's all War Saint. And War Saint goes on to win. Second Brave Contender, third.
Brave Contender just copped a little bit of interference at the start of that most recent race. It was pushed up 3 back to fence. Had to be angled out wide going in towards the straight and really was just doing its best work there at the last 50 metres or so and was definitely strongest past the post. I think all things considered, it should get itself into a pretty good spot from barrier 4. This race does look a fair bit weaker than previous starts and its recent rating should be good enough for this sort of 2-year-old race. So it goes on top for me from the 3 Carabiner, which I think with blinkers on first time and showing a little bit more pace in its most recent trial, should be able to kick up and try and hold the front here. Ryan Hill on board is obviously going to try and ride the horse in a forward position. I think gate 1 is only a positive. That recent trial was pretty good as well. Third pick for race 1 is the 2 Protected Action. It's another horse that's been running pretty consistently. It's coming from that 1,000-metre race behind Miss Tycoon. And obviously Miss Tycoon came out and won recently on Saturday. So that does point towards a forward showing here. And then the 4th pick is the 7 Crystal Springs, who has shown a bit of speed in some trials. First time here at the races, but I think it should be able to get into a good position for barrier 3. On top in race 1 is the 1 Brave Contender from 3 Carabiner, 2 Protected Action and 7 Crystal Springs. Race 2 at Belmont jumps at 1:49. It's the Tracy Lee 60th birthday handicap over 1,650 metres and our horse and focus will go down to Pinjarra to have a look at the most recent start of Luke's Choice.
Struggling around the bend at the moment. Followed then on the outside, Luke's Choice, then Morning Song. Strictly got over on the inside behind them is Rivalry Galore trying to make up some ground and further back behind them Triggerfish. But now Luke's Choice surges to the lead for Whiting at the 150 and dashes away from them. Luke's Choice opens up. It's got the money okay. Rivalry Galore, Morning Song, then over there finally getting its mind on the job.
It was a pretty good race there from Luke's Choice. The horse jumped well from out wide, was just restrained back early to find a bit of cover. But as you saw there on the replay, it was certainly dominant going towards the line. This race doesn't look like there's much tempo up front whatsoever. So I think the horse has a bit of tractability there. It should be able to roll forward if it jumps well. Otherwise, it should be able to settle back in the field and just try and utilise that same turn of foot that we saw there in its most recent start. Goes on top for me from the 2 over there. We saw the horse bomb the start at the same race at Pinjarra. It got way too far back. It was about 5 or 6 lengths last at one stage. And then obviously rounded up, threaded a few gaps in the straight and finished quite strongly. But it's just a small concern as to how far back in its races this horse does tend to get. It is quite competitive at its best form, but it will need to begin a little bit cleaner than that, especially from gate 3. Third pick is the 4 Cockatiel, and again this is another horse that did seem to accelerate going well through the line, so I think the step up and journey does look ideal. The gate from gate 1 is a little bit of a concern, but again if it can begin well and be ridden slightly more positive, you'd have to give it a chance based on that finishing burst last start. And then 4th pick is the 6 Jupiter's Sun, who should be able to begin, it's got blinkers on, it should be able to roll forward from gate 7 and take up a prominent spot in running. On top in race 2 is the 1 Luke's Choice from 2 over there, 4 Cockatiel and 6 Jupiter's Sun. Race 3 at Belmont jumps at 2:24. It's the Western Race Picks maiden over 1,200 metres and we haven't seen this horse in a little while, so we'll have a look at the most recent trial of Manhattan Money.
Inside the last 400 metres, Midnight Hour on the outside of Sky 5, getting to the outside, Sit Down, Be Humble, Stairway to Heaven. Off the track and running on is Black Russian as they head down the straight, and the other runners are caught up behind a wall, including 28 Rock and Manhattan Money. Anyone's race inside the 150 as Sit Down, Be Humble takes the lead over Midnight Hour and Sky 5. Sit Down, Be Humble's in front and beat Midnight Hour.
Just the 1 trial for Manhattan Money after 140-day let-up. I think the horse does have a fair bit of ability. We've only seen it twice at the races, both times at Bunbury, where it was able to use a good turn of foot late. I think barrier 1, if it can begin well and settle just that little bit closer to the speed than what we've seen previously, it should be pretty hard to beat. It does look like it's got a fair motor underneath the hood. So for me, Manhattan Money goes on top. From the 2, which is Empowered, I thought this was a really good run last start. Began well, came across and sat outside the leader in what was just a moderate tempo overall. And it was collared up by the short favourite that had the drop on it, and it still managed to fight its way towards the line. So if it can find a bit of luck in running from the wide gate and settle prominently once more, you'd have to respect it off that last start. Third pick is the 5, which is Carmel Bay. Just a second run here in WA for this horse, but if you go off recent figures, especially over East, it should appreciate the slightly bigger field, and if it can settle itself just that fraction more forward than what it did first up, it should be pretty strong going towards the line late. And fourth pick is the 6, Aristic, which trialled really well just recently. It was ridden for speed, managed to lead that trial up and was a dominant winner late. It just needs to jump well from that wide barrier. 11 on top in race 3, Manhattan Money from 2, Empowered, 5, Carmel Bay and 6, Aristic. Race 4 at Belmont jumps at 3 o'clock. It's the Iron Jack handicap over 1,200 metres, and our horse and focus is Gillespie. So let's have a look at its most recent trial.
And Wildenbrook held the inside. Gillespie's been wide throughout, but goes up to introduce itself the outside. Now Distant Trilogy, the Greys chiming in as Gillespie takes the lead from Wildenbrook. Distant Trilogy back to the inside, making some ground. Safarian, but in the lead. Gillespie's been a nice run. It pulls away and is going on for a comfortable victory. Gillespie wins. Second there was.
It was a pretty nice trial from Gillespie, who does seem to have a fair amount of talent. It's been able to show a good turn of foot over the last 400. But in that most recent trial, it was ridden on pace. It was 3 and 4 wide without cover. It eventually got outside the leader and then just kicked away from the turn. It was a pretty impressive performance, and the horses obviously returned well. It does have a few quirks, so it will need a little bit of luck out there from gate 7. But I think it's best served rolling forward and controlling the speed here. So it goes on top for me from the 1, Baron Bostock. Thought it was just a little bit plain first up there over the 1,000. It's the first time the horse has actually raced over more than 1,000 metres as well, so that's a small query. But it did seem to be doing its best work late, and it was coming out wide, which I'm not sure was necessarily suitable on the day. Third pick, Essential Spice, gets much the same comment. It's coming from the same race. It got a bit too far back as well and was trying to do that running out wide. I think from gate 1 it can probably settle far handier towards the speed, and it did seem to relish going towards the line. It was just that last 50 metres it seemed to get going in that race. Fourth pick is the 5, Lookout, who's just been racing pretty consistently recently. Recent figures are good enough to be figuring here in the finish. Gate 6 does look suitable, and I'm expecting it to settle in the first few runners. On top in race 4 is the 4, Gillespie from 1, Baron Bostock, 3, Essential Spice and 5, Lookout.